So, when you think of Zinedine Zidane, what comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's this impossible elegance, right? A true artist with the ball. But then, there's that moment, that one burst of shocking rage that defines so much. Today, we're going to try and unpack the story of Zinedine Zidane, one of football's greatest and most complicated icons.
All right, just put yourself in his shoes for a second. Imagine you're the best player of your generation. It is your last ever professional game. And it's not just any game. It's the World Cup final, the biggest stage on earth. So, how does a story like that end?
Well, it ends just like this. Picture the scene. Berlin, 2006. The World Cup final. The game is on a knife's edge, just 10 minutes away from a penalty shootout. And then, Zidane, the French captain, just walks up to Italian defender Marco Materazzi and drives his head straight into his chest. A red card. That long, lonely walk past the trophy he'll never lift again. I mean, you couldn't make this up. It's an ending that absolutely nobody saw coming.
And the contrast. I mean, the sheer whiplash of that single night is just staggering. The match started with Zidane at his most brilliant, scoring one of the most audacious penalties you will ever see, a Panenka chip, in the World Cup final. But it ended with an act of just raw violence that left his team high and dry. France went on to lose that shootout. In the space of 110 minutes, the hero had become the villain.
And, the whole world was just stunned. France's biggest sports paper, L'Équipe, they really summed it up for everyone. They asked on their front page, how could he, of all people, do this? This man who represented the very best of a multicultural France. Well, the thing is, to find the answer, you've got to go all the way back to the beginning of his story.
Right, so to get a handle on the man, you really have to get a handle on the place that made him. And we're talking about the tough port city of Marseille. This is it right here. This contrast perfectly sums up Zidane's whole story. On one hand, you have the hard, concrete reality of La Castellane, one of the city's roughest neighborhoods. That's where he was forged. But on the other, you have the hero he became. An icon for the city, his face looking out over the beautiful Mediterranean, representing all its dreams.
So let's get into his background. He was born back in '72, the son of Algerian immigrants who settled in La Castellane, a place that, let's be honest, had a tough reputation for crime and unemployment. His dad, Smile, worked nights as a security guard and was super strict, instilling a discipline that Zidane later said was the guiding light of his whole career. And it's that discipline, that work ethic, that gave him that incredible control on the pitch.
And Zidane himself, he was always really open about this dual identity. He was fiercely proud to be French, but he was just as proud of his Algerian roots. This idea of being between two worlds, two cultures, it was absolutely central to who he was, both as a person and as a player.
So, that fiery temper, the one we saw in 2006, yeah, that was nothing new. It was always there. Even when he was a kid, his coaches knew that if you insulted his family or his heritage, you were playing with fire. He even admitted later that something like 12 of his 14 red cards came from him being provoked. That fuse, man, it was lit a long, long time ago.
But here's the thing. That same fire, it also fueled a talent that was just off the charts. So let's follow his journey, from this raw kid from Marseille to maybe the most elegant player the world has ever seen. And his rise was, well, it was unstoppable. He starts making a name for himself at Cannes and Bordeaux, and then he makes the jump to the absolute top tier. First, he goes and conquers Serie A with Juventus, no easy feat. And then, he gets the call from the biggest club on the planet, Real Madrid.
And in 2001, Real Madrid shattered the world transfer record to get him. We're talking 77.5 million euros. That number tells you everything you need to know. He wasn't just a great player anymore. He was the best. Period.
I mean, other legends of the game could barely find the words to describe what he did. Alfredo Di Stefano, a Real Madrid god, said Zidane played as if he had silk gloves on each foot. That's it, right? That's the grace. It's like the ball was just a part of him. But it wasn't just grace. It was grace mixed with incredible power. And there's no better example than his goal in the 2002 Champions League final. You've probably seen it. The ball just hangs in the air forever, he swivels his body, and connects with this perfect volley, with his weaker foot. One writer described it as Bruce Lee in slow motion. It was just pure, beautiful art in the middle of absolute chaos.
But for all his club success, it was playing for France where he became a true, undeniable legend. So let's talk about the 1998 World Cup. 2. That's the number. 2 goals in the World Cup final in Paris against Brazil, the reigning champs. And here's the kicker. Zidane, the maestro with his feet, scored both of them with his head. Just incredible.
And the celebration after? Wow. They projected his face onto the Arc de Triomphe, one of the most famous monuments in the world, with just 2 words, Merci Zizou. Thank you, Zizou. In that moment, the kid from the tough Marseille neighborhood, the son of immigrants, he was France.
So he delivers France its first ever World Cup. He's man of the match, he gets the country's highest honor, the Legion of Honor, and then, just for good measure, 2 years later, he leads them to the Euro title. For that period of time, the man was simply untouchable.
Okay, so if the story just stopped there, in Berlin in 2006, it would be a tragedy, plain and simple. But it doesn't end there, not even close. Zinedine Zidane had a second act, and honestly, it was maybe just as mind-blowing as the first.
After he hung up his boots, he didn't just disappear. He studied, he became a student of the game all over again. He took this really smart, patient path at Real Madrid, starting as an advisor, then an assistant, then coaching the B team. It was the same intelligence he showed on the pitch, just applied differently. And then, in 2016, he got the call. He was the new manager of Real Madrid. And what he did next, nobody had ever done it before. He became the first coach in history to win the Champions League 3 times in a row. The quiet artist was now a master tactician. He handled a locker room packed with superstars, not by yelling, but with this calm, cool authority. Yeah, being a legend earned him their respect, but it was his brain that won all those trophies.
And this was his redemption. Look at him, triumphant, calm, a champion all over again. It is a million miles away from that sad walk off the pitch in Berlin. He didn't just accept his ending, he went out and wrote a brand new one. So we end up right back where we started, with that big question. You've got these 2 sides of Zidane, the beautiful grace and the sudden fury. They seem like they can't possibly exist in the same person. But could they? Was that temper, the one forged on the streets of Marseille, was it just a weakness? Or was it the engine for everything else? The thing that fueled his insane competitive drive, his hatred of losing, his genius? Could you even have the artist without the anger? That right there is the puzzle of Zidane.